everyone, so today I'm here with Scott Lawrence. I am very happy to have him. He's a very clever and a super talented person and a friend of mine as well. Hi Scott, how are you?
Good, thank you for having me on your channel.
Oh well, thank you so much Scott. He's a hypnotherapist and a hypnosis expert.
Yes.
And I'm really looking forward to this interview. I'm pretty sure that many people like me are super interested in this topic, hypnosis and hypnotherapy. So we have a bunch of questions that I'm pretty sure people are gonna enjoy it. So
yeah.
Let's start with the first one.
Yep.
Scott, the first one I would say, what is the difference between a hypnotherapist and a hypnotist?
Yep, so basically a stage hypnotist is doing entertainment. They're basically different because like a hypnotherapist with the word therapy in it is looking to produce a therapeutic outcome. So if it's to help them to quit smoking, then it's the quit smoking. If it's for weight loss, it's for weight loss or anxiety, depression. So all of these like clinical issues that a hypnotherapist will treat is not something that a stage hypnotist for entertainment will do, because they're more, they're doing something which is more catered for, it's for the audience to just look really, really amazing. Kind of like to showcase what hypnotism actually is, like to give them an actual example. So they're both really good, but they have like their own places.
Yeah. That is one of the questions we have as well, because some people, when they think about hypnosis, they are like, okay, so now if I am hypnotized, I'm just going to behave like a dog or doing weird things.
Yeah.
Is that it? Like, what is your definition of hypnosis?
Well, it's like when the word comes from like the Greek word of sleep. Mm-hmm. The way I see what hypnosis is that it's basically that the brain can learn, and it can learn under relaxation. We're just doing that. We're getting the person to relax while getting their brain to learn a new set of behaviors. They've spent their whole life learning, sometimes, some brilliant behaviors that are working for them, but then there's a lot of behaviors people have, such as self-doubt, lack of confidence, self-sabotage, which are behaviors that they have. Their brain has spent the whole life learning those behaviors, which are not so beneficial. Under hypnosis, we reprogram that.
One question many people have is, what are actually the benefits from hypnosis? So you just kind of answer that question, right?
Yeah, mainly I look at it as behavioral benefits. They start doing better things for themselves, like whether they eat better, they sleep better, whether it's more of a conscious behavior, as in that they quit smoking, so it's something that they're physically changing, or if it's more of like a behavior which they're less conscious of, like it's an actual physical behavior like digestion. They've been experiencing so much stress that it's been interfering with their digestion, and when they can relax, they can basically process food again.
Interesting. Is there any danger though, or
No.
risk by doing hypnosis or by being hypnotized?
No, it's like sleep, but different. So there's no danger to it, especially like at the place where I learned, the Academy of Hypnotic Science. It's a nationally accredited course, a 2-year diploma that I did. So I studied in 2008 and 2009, and what they teach us is basically how the mind works. And so that hypnosis is not magic, or it's not this, like, even though it's an altered state, it's not kind of the type of altered state that you would tend to see in TV, because it's more of an experience that you have to have. And so it's like you've got awake, there's a sleep, and in between is like this daydream state. Like say, like if ever you've, I don't know, like watched TV for 20 minutes, but you have no idea what's happened. Because what's happened is your brain has gone off and entertained itself. It's daydreamed by itself.
Whoa, okay. I have a couple of questions here then, because you said it's like kind of being asleep.
Yep.
Asleep. Now, if we are asleep, could we wake up in any moment that we want?
Yes. Well, generally, if you're just asleep, you don't just wake up at any moment that you want, but you could wake up at any moment. So it's kind of like that, but it's not as it's not like a deep sleep where the person's just asleep.
It's not a deep sleep.
They can be half conscious, so they can know, just like that you can know that the TV's been on for so long, or that have you ever, like, say, picked your phone up to look at the time, and you made eye contact and you looked at the time and you've gone, I've looked at it, then you put your phone away and then you go, oh yeah, what was the time? Because that we didn't make brain contact with the time, we made eye contact. So that's kind of what was happening then, is the person just through habit just picked it up, and then they just went on about their day without actually stopping to check that they actually knew what the time was before putting it away.
Okay. say that I am hypnotized,
Yep.
for instance. Will I remember everything after, once I'm waking up? Will I remember everything that happens while I was hypnotized?
Generally, like what happens, like while we do hypnotherapy, is that it's just like a meditation. They're in a chair. So all they're really doing is they're sitting in a chair. So there's not really much for them to remember, except that a hypnotherapist is speaking to them. And so the same as like if they're just kind of in a daydream state, they won't remember everything that the hypnotherapist said because they were off daydreaming, because we want them to be daydreaming because that's what that hypnotic state is. So it's not that, I mean, like if they were doing stage hypnosis, that's different, as in like, will they remember what they did for entertainment? While absolutely they remember that. But we don't do that with hypnotherapy. We basically just focus on the therapeutic outcome. And there is no reason, I mean, like there's no really great reason yet as to why they can't do all of hypnotherapy just while the client's just sitting in a chair. If that makes sense? That you don't need to have them standing up on a stage. You don't need them doing anything that's like showmanship related.
Yeah. I get you. Yeah. Could I change anything, absolutely anything, if I want, by being hypnotized?
Yep. As far as we know, what people, I suppose, should know about hypnotherapy is that, yes, you can change behaviors, but some behaviors are there for a reason. And so if you've got something that's just a habit, like say someone just keeps biting their nails and they just want to stop, yeah, absolutely, you can change anything. But what if something that they change shouldn't be changed? So there's what we call like a secondary gain. And so it's not just like whether or not it should or shouldn't be changed, but if there is a stress that someone has and they eat to calm down, and they just say, well, can you help me to stop eating to calm down? And you're like, great, cool, I'll help you to stop eating to calm down. And then they stop eating to calm down, but now they don't calm down.
Yeah.
So what they need is another strategy to calm down, because eating was a strategy. It was doing something for them. The same as smoking cigarettes is horrible for health. However, it may have been serving a purpose for stress reduction. So that hypnotherapy is more than just the power to program a person. Something like at least, more than half of it is about knowing what you should change, what you should just get rid of, and what you need to replace. And so that if a person, let's say that they were yelling at people to reduce stress, and you're like, okay, you can't just yell at people to reduce stress, you've got to stop that. They can stop it, but then how are they going to reduce stress? They need another option. As in, would you like a punching bag, or would you like a sport, or would you like a creative outlet, or would you like to stop the thing that was causing the stress in the first place? So there's some complexity as to what a person actually needs that we really need to look at before treating somebody in hypnotherapy. And that's why we do the counseling element before the hypnosis.
Yeah. Now, is there any possible way that hypnosis wouldn't work? For instance, if people don't believe in it, would it work for them?
Yeah, because it's a cooperative thing. So it's kind of like, there was a song by Eminem where he says, I'm rocking the table while they're operating. So you can imagine, like, there's Eminem on the table and they're trying to do surgery on him, but he keeps kind of shaking the table. And it's very hard for, like, the surgeons to kind of do what they're doing. So if somebody's literally just looking to fight their therapist, what do you expect? Because, like, if all they're doing is looking to fight the therapist, all they're going to get is some kind of a confrontation. Because that's what they were looking for. They're looking to create a confrontation, and it worked. They created one. So if somebody absolutely goes in saying, I 100% believe that this will fail, that's what they start to create for themselves. So that's why you still can help those people, but there's some work that you need to do before. You don't just like put them in the hypnotherapy chair and say, like, right, I'm going to hypnotize you now. It's not a power play of that kind. The idea is you ask, well, then why are you here? Like, if you're that certain, then why are you here? And then if they tell you basically that, I've had an experience with another one who wasn't as good, and you're like, fair enough, they weren't as good, but why are you here? What do you want? There's something that you want. You want clarity on something, or you want to improve something, or you want to change a habit, or you want to live better in some way. Once they start to get clarity, they then believe in hypnotherapy because they understand like where they're going to end up. Because if you don't know where you want to end up, then there's no point in, like, why use a powerful tool if you don't know why you're using the powerful tool, if that makes sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's reframe a little bit, because when you are a hypnotherapist,
Yes.
do you believe that there is hypnosis in the real world, even if we are not aware of it? Like, can I hypnotize someone even without being aware of it?
Well, I suppose a way that you could describe being hypnotized isn't just like on stage, somebody clicks and someone drops their head and that's what you'd look at as a hypnotic state. But we're getting influenced and programmed without being asleep.
Yeah.
Like advertising companies spend billions on this. Like it's what this is. It's really, hypnosis is no different from the study of the brain. And marketing is no different from the study of the brain. And so of course that they're borrowing from similar elements. They're borrowing from the same pool of tools. Like if we know that a particular color, like you put, say there's a car with a woman in front of the car, and that woman somehow raises sales. But it's a car, you just get the car. So it's kind of like they're always in marketing, like what they're doing is looking to see how they can increase their revenue.
I was exactly thinking about marketing, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is it possible to hypnotize someone, not to the stage of being asleep and behaving, doing weird things, not that kind of hypnosis, but is it possible to hypnotize someone or using some kind of hypnosis strategies in order to influence people? Is it possible to do it against someone's will? Like if someone doesn't want to, is it possible to still influence through hypnosis?
I think that like one way to describe that is that you're not going to have a weaponized hypnosis tool, like where you can go in, like imagine like if they could just go in and rob banks, like literally point the hypnosis gun at them and say, hand over your money. But all it is, like hypnosis, if we could almost like reframe the whole thing to say it's an understanding of someone's current patterns to understand what are they already likely to do. The more you understand about what people are already likely to do, the easier you can then work your strategies around how predictable they already are, and say, well, this could sound a little complex, but if every time you say A, they say B, and you love it when they say B, you should say lots of A. But every time you say C, they say D, and you hate it when they say D, you probably shouldn't say much C. So it's really, if you can read someone, if you can see how they're behaving, then of course you have power of persuasion. And this is one of those things that somebody watching could be thinking, or anybody thinking about this topic could be thinking, is hypnosis a good thing or is it a bad thing? Should you be using it, should you not be using it? And then we could make the same argument with, should we be using money in the world? Because is money good or is money evil? Or what about knives? For a surgeon, it can save a life. At home, you can eat your food with it. But a knife is also a weapon and it's quite dangerous. And so you're never going to be able to ban thinking, as far as we know. So the idea is that you've got to provide your own ethics. You've got to be good about this, because absolutely there is a possibility to use all forms of psychology for bad. And by bad, it means that it's not a win-win scenario, it's a win-lose scenario. As in one person wins because of the suffering of another. But there's no point in doing that, because if you're so good at knowing how to create a win situation, then it doesn't take that much extra thinking to create a win-win situation. Or like in businesses where you create a triple win situation where there's more than two people involved. Absolutely. It just requires a little bit more thinking. What happens is that when people get emotional, emotion can be good. It can drive them to such positive passion and love, but also emotion can drive them just to panic and reaction instead of response. And so that if a person basically just like lashes out and punches, and they didn't think it through, they could really hurt somebody. So the idea is like, if you're going to use a tool, it becomes all of our responsibility to think about how we're going to use it and to say, how are we going to leave the other person? We're going to leave them better off. Because absolutely you can do damage with anything, not just hypnosis, with a rock,
Yes,
with water. You can hurt people with water.
Yeah.
They can drown. They can get crushed by too much.
Great, Scott. Now, could we have access to our past memories through hypnosis?
Yes.
Even if we don't remember them consciously.
Yep. There's this whole thing to know about hypnosis and the history of dealing with memories is that there is no way of knowing if those memories that are recovered actually happened, or if they happened in the way that we remembered them. And there's this problem that we called false memory syndrome, where we can actually contaminate a person. Like we've found, like in what we call like jury tampering, where they've done these tests where there's a jury, even just a fake jury, just as a test, and they do a handbag robbery right in front of this jury, and the handbag was brown. And they film it, and they film this brown handbag being stolen in front of 20 people. Later on, they've put a mole, or they've put like sort of somebody in the jury who's just there to try to trick everybody. And all they do is they say like, I think I remember it being a white handbag. And they're like, yeah, that's right. I think I remember it being a white handbag. And then everybody starts to believe that it was a white handbag that was stolen. And then they replay the footage and they see it was brown. So the problem is like that, so this can get a little bit dark with the history of false memory syndrome. But what they've done is that they've, in America, I can't remember exactly how long ago, in the courts, they were using hypnosis to recover what they thought were memories, to uncover what they thought was sexual abuse by people's parents. But the problem was that the abuse never actually happened in a lot of those cases. In some they did, but in so many they never actually happened.
Wow. And
so the problem in the hypnosis is that every time you remember a memory, you alter the memory. Like think about, like say that your level of sophistication as an adult is that if you look at a 5-year-old and another 5-year-old interacting, you could describe that interaction with fairly good clarity. But when you were 5, you probably didn't know what was going on as well as what you do now, because you're just more experienced now. But when you think back to when you were 5, you've contaminated your 5-year-old memory with all of this adult sophistication that you have, because the truth of the actual memory is that it was foggy, is that it was unclear, that you only had 5 years of experience on this planet, as far as we know, and you just didn't, there was no way that back then you could have known as much as what you know now. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So it's really that if you look back at your past and think, oh, when I was 5, these things happened, is that the way that you would have spoken when you were actually 5? Because if not, then you're not remembering it. You've actually altered your memories of when you were 5. So when you bring a memory up, that if we think of evolution and the reason that evolution happens, it's basically, as far as what we can tell, survival. So every alteration in a species is there as an advantage, as in like that if fish can breathe water, there's an advantage to that. If birds, they don't weigh much and their bones are hollow, so they're light enough to fly. And so then if you think about like us having an absolute perfect memory, there is no evolutionary advantage to us having an absolute perfect memory. Our memory was never there as a database. Our evolutionary advantage to having a memory was just to help us get through the next 90 days.
Wow. Okay. And well, that was amazing. That was super interesting.
Yeah.
Even when you said, even some people that had a memory as being abused and they weren't abused, that is amazing. Now, my last question is related also to memories.
Yes.
The question was, are memories real? And that, let's frame it a little bit. So some people, almost everyone has any kind of trauma or bad experience since when they were a kid or a while ago.
Yeah.
Now, why we keep sometimes living that memory, like living the experience again, like the trauma is already in our lives instead of just letting it go because it just lives in our memory.
Yeah.
What is your best advice in order to let that go and live in just in the memory?
Well, it's funny actually, like, because we've had some deep conversations before, and in asking like, are our memories real? 2 people can't agree on the present. So like that you get, like, did you ever see that dress where some were saying it was blue, some were saying it's white? So to say that, you know, like, are my eyes telling me what I think my eyes are telling me right now? And to some degree, we just have to admit that we just understand things in different ways. So that if 2 people live through the same event and they recall it differently, or 2 people are currently living through the same event and they're interpreting it differently, they're not dealing with reality. They're dealing with reality plus their filters. It's like that if, say there's a species that is blind, to them, there is no light. To like a species that has like sonar radar, that's real, but to us, we don't experience it that way. Like there's like an eagle that can see like a mile away, like telescopically. To them, that's real, that everything's really close. But to us, it's not. It's really foggy. So like if you were to say like, is a mile away really sort of clear or not? Like it depends on what you are. Like do you have good vision? Do you have bad vision? So like in order to, if you were to think like there's a traumatic event and you want to let it go, imagine you get a camera and there's some abuse and you film it. Like you have an argument with people and you get bullied and you film it, but it only went for 5 minutes. And it was so painful. So you take that footage that you had, you take it home and you watch it for the next 20 years to relive the pain over and over. We'd call that a bad idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now let's say instead of it being a camera and a TV, it's in our brain. So there's no actual, but there's still a camera because there are our eyes, and our brain is repatterning it over and over, and we're adding to it, we're adding meaning, we're adding interpretation until there's the brain cells, the axon, the dendrite, the synapse, like they're connecting and they're building more and more pathways to this pain. And then the endocrine system, the hormones that we have, are basically just giving us more pain instead of pleasure. Because it's like saying that here's fight or flight mode, it's something's wrong, you've got to fix it. Like the brain's trying to protect you. And the more you dwell on the stuff that's out to get you, the more your fight or flight comes up, the more adrenaline withdrawal, the more adrenaline fatigue you get, to the point like where you just can't function.
Exactly, yeah.
One of the things to do is to realize that we see everything, we relate everything to time, whether we know it and it's just been, it's clear that we're talking about time or a timeline scale, or whether it's just hinted and people don't know that the conversation is about past, present and future, that those three themes are always there. And so when you talk about something like, say, anxiety or stress or worry, usually what you're thinking about is too much energy and the future. Because something's coming. Something bad's going to come and get you in the next 90 days, not 10 years, because the survival instinct doesn't care past 90 days. Like if there was a tiger that was going to come and get you in 15 years, you'd be like, yeah, it's 15 years. But if one was going to come and get you in the next 3 days, you'd be worried about it. So then another way of looking, so like anxiety could be like, say, too much energy looking at the future, but depression could be like not enough energy thinking about the past, and guilt, regret, like you hurt someone, they hurt you, and then you bring all those memories forward into an identity that you wear, and you start saying that that's what you are instead of just something that you lived through. And so then what happens is that people keep going between anxiety and depression. So they either get sick of being a control freak that's snappy, and they get tired, and then they feel guilty for doing nothing, for just being lazy and not achieving anything. Wow. Until they get sick of that, then they come back up to anxiety. And then they're like the ping pong ball getting hit by both paddles. And so they're never, like say in our Western society, that there's, with things like antidepressants, there is a time and a place for those, and there's a time and a place to not have those. We have far too many people that have just been chucked onto antidepressants without any real thought as to should they be on it or should they not be on it. Mm-hmm. Some legally, some illegally. But also there are people that should have it, so you can't just say that all antidepressants are bad. There's so much more that we could say about those, but the idea is like, imagine that like what you've got in psychological drugs that are legal, once prescribed by doctors, you've got basically uppers and downers. Mm-hmm. Uppers to give you energy, downers to tranquilize you. And so the majority of what like they're giving people is a tranquilizer, something to sort of get them nice and drunk. Not drunk in a way like with alcohol, but a different fogginess, where then instead of being snappy, they're just kind of a little bit confused and vague. So they're not living like their full selves. Mm. Some people love that, and that's exactly what they need, because it gets them away from those harsh, like especially in an emergency situation, if we're dealing with like either someone going to hurt someone else or someone's going to hurt themselves, we've got to treat that as a medical emergency. A suicide risk is a medical emergency, and we need to treat it as a medical emergency. That person needs help. And that's why that whatever drugs the doctor says is the drugs the doctor says in that particular situation, because just save their life. Yeah. However, outside of those situations, which is the rest of us for the rest of the time, is that if anyone's going to put you on a drug or take you off a drug, you expect them to have a very good reason for doing it. And there's usually not a great reason for doing it. Because when you just bring everyone into the middle, they're like this, people talk about being in this zombified state where they just feel nothing. There's no pain, but there's no joy. Because up isn't just anxiety and down's not just depression. Up can be excitement, control, planning, have a goal to like get married, start a business, travel the world, whatever you want, write a book, a movie, a stage play, but that's all up there because it's about high energy in the future. But then it's like breathing in and breathing out. If I said, do you prefer to breathe in or do you prefer to breathe out? You'd be like, well, I kind of need both to live.
Yeah.
And so then you also need down. And so down is where you go, so stop achieving stuff while you're doing the down cycle, where that's where you should let go. And we use insult words for almost everything. So like when someone's motivated, we'll always call it stressed or anxious. And if someone's just relaxed, we call it lazy. And so we hardly ever use the compliment words for it to say, you're just up, which is a neutral way to describe it, or you're excited and motivated and pumped, ready to go, or you're calm and you're chilling out, feet up, relaxing, whatever you want to call it.
That's right. Well, Scott, you are totally a bunch of knowledge.
Yeah.
Totally an expert. You have shown us with your expertise, and this interview, I believe, is going to be very, very useful for many people.
Yeah.
That not only are interested in hypnosis, but also many people are, as everyone know, having some things, and they can find some useful things. Thank you so much. It's been great, and I hope you have enjoyed a lot.
Yeah.
You want to say something? Yeah.
I could go on for another 10 hours. There's no possible way. There's no possible way for me to complete that answer in a short period of time.
Do you want to say something else?
No, I could just go on for, or actually just one last part.
Absolutely.
Is that the real cure for outside of medical emergencies is that if a person's like painfully feeling up and down, you were asking how do you let go of all of that, is that you actually have to start creating joy. It sounds too simple to be true, but the habit was to create pain. We need to create the habit of creating joy. So when you're up, don't just insult up. Take advantage of it and say that, isn't it great you're motivated? Because your brain runs on pictures, sounds, feelings, taste, and smell. And so whatever you keep repeating as sensory information, like if I say don't think of 3, you'll think of 3 anyway. If I say don't think of a polar bear, you'll think of a polar bear anyway. Because the word don't doesn't help that sentence. It's just the sensory. So it was 3 and polar bear that you focused on, not so much the don't. Or if I say absolutely do not think of a stop sign and try not to know what color it is. So if the same as someone saying don't feel stressed, well then they're thinking of stress. And that's a short example, but a longer example is the more that they talk about how much they've been wronged in their life, as accurate as somebody can have been wronged, and that actually happened. The only time you want to focus on being wronged is a time when you're actually taking action to fix it, and then quarantine the amount of time you take to fix being wronged and spend the rest of your time focusing on what's right. Like what you're grateful for, what you love, like all the good things that you're kind of ignoring. Because if you can't, and not to say that you're ignoring, but that people that do ignore, that if you can't find joy a little bit now, then no achieving a goal will bring joy later.
Absolutely.
So it's so important to start the habit of using positive pictures, sounds, and feelings. Like if I want someone to think about the number 7 instead of 3, I'm going to start talking about the number 7. If I want someone to feel less stressed, I'm going to say feel more calm. And then bring the body into it and say, I want you to let go of your stomach. Or like right from the bottom of it, like nearly the pelvic area, just release it. So that when you breathe, you know how like your stomach inflates when you breathe in and deflates when you breathe out? If you just start with that physically, your body will actually start to relax, and then that becomes a good physical platform for your words in your head to then start saying nice things. So focus on the good, focus on the joy as well. Do focus on your contingency plans and logic and facts that need to be fixed, because they are important. But when it comes to changing feelings, facts have no place. Being right will never help you feel better. Being grateful is the platform. Being relaxed and being grateful is the platform to feel better. to release.
Thank goodness you said this last thing.
Yeah.
We didn't stop here, so thank you.
Yeah.
It was a great advice, and a great advice. And thank you so much for your message. And thank you so much for being there, listening to this interview. I hope you have enjoyed. Let us know with your comments and share it if you like it. I'll see you very, very soon. And yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.